nap, right? Or some kind of rest. I had a nice nap too. I'll wake up any minute now. So anyway, well good. Glad you're here. It is a really wonderful privilege to have this opportunity to share and talk with you. I've been coming to SEP SoCal since my eldest son was 9 years of age and he's now 22. And I guess I've come pretty much all those years. I don't know, I just have lots of memories of bunks, sleeping bags, dust, walking, and then a lot of really great, wonderful memories of being with people and worshiping together, and connecting and making friends, and just being part of just a wonderful camp network, you know, and it's really so cool, and you all know that too, right? One of the major things that brings you back here, if returning is the friends you made and the friends you have and so forth, and as we connect together, that's a real valuable thing. So I'm privileged to be here connecting with all of you today, and I thank you for this opportunity. I also thank you because I'm getting the opportunity to do today something that I never imagined I'd get to do. And it isn't just presenting at purity session for the girls, but I'm here today to have the talk. You know the talk, right? That's what we used to call it, you know, when we explained to the kids about birds and the bees, right? Except we're not going to exactly talk about birds and bees today. We're going to talk about the tweets and the buzz. Got it? The tweets and the buzz, right? And it's kind of a cool, neat topic to talk about, but you know what? It's a really big, important one, and the more I begin to dig into it and understand, it has a lot of implications, just as much as the birds and the bees talk. Just as much as some of those topics, this can be one of those topics we haven't talked enough in the right way about. So I had fun kind of looking into this and understanding it a bit more, and I just want to today not just tell you things, no. I just want to kind of expand your thinking, you know, and help you explore this topic, this new topic, and get it in a bigger, better context. I think that's where we're going to start, where we want to go. But let me first read you something from the book of Proverbs. And I'm going to read this from the Message version, because it's kind of cool how it words it. In Proverbs chapter 10, wise son, glad father. Stupid son, sad mother. Makes sense, doesn't it? Makes sense. You want to gladden the hearts of your parents. Okay? It says, sloth makes you poor. Diligence brings wealth. Makes sense. Make hay while the sun shines. That's smart. Go fishing during harvest. That's stupid. You take advantage of the opportunities you have and learn to do wise things. But notice this. Blessings accrue on a good, honest life. But the mouth of the wicked is a dark cave of abuse. And unfortunately, sometimes what happens with some of these online stuff, it kind of can turn into that dark cave of verbal and written abuse. Things that are sometimes said that, you know, it's like the bell. You can't unring a bell, can you? And you can't oftentimes really unpost something to post it. So we want to talk about that a little more and kind of explore that a little bit and be sure we think about what we're doing. A wise heart takes orders, an empty head will come unglued. Honesty lives confident and carefree, but shifty is sure to be exposed. So the kind of lives we want to live are honest and upfront and happy and fulfilled. But there's a lot of things that kind of can get in our way. This topic today is called branding and online identity. Do you know what branding is? Well, what's branding?
Branding is like when you have cattle and they want to put like their signature, their initials on the cattle, so they have like this iron thing that they put in hot steam and then like.
Right. Do you understand that, branding cattle? You know, so you'd have a signature or a sign or an emblem, a logo for your ranch, and you would make it into a metal hot iron brand. You'd get it hot, and you'd burn it into their hide. Okay? And then it's unmistakable whose cow that is, because it has the symbol of my ranch on it, right? But where did the word branding come from? From brand. Well, what does brand mean? Well, it goes back into some European and some French derivatives of the language, and to brand meant to burn wood, or burning of wood. Okay? And you can see that relationship. There's a burning there. Okay? And we give it identity. We brand something to give it identity, to say whose it is, who it belongs to, whose property it is. And this kind of branding has been used in a lot of ways over history. Right? Yes, branding cattle. Okay? But people have been branded, unfortunately. There were times when prisoners were branded. I don't mean with a hot iron necessarily, although that's probably been used. But with something, what's it called? Another kind of mark you can make that doesn't come off.
Tattoo.
What? Tattoo. Right? Prisoners have been tattooed. Right? And we still tattoo. Now, does that make it wrong? Is branding that cow wrong? No. Is having a tattoo by itself wrong? No, but it might depend a little bit on the message that's related to it, on whose label you're taking. You know, you steal your neighbor's cow and you put your brand over his brand. You see what I mean? You could be conveying something that shouldn't be conveyed, trying to do something that shouldn't be done. Tattoos, branding, burning. Let me ask you something about branding. Does it hurt?
Yes.
What about tattoos? Do they hurt?
Yes.
Interesting. So our online branding, can it hurt?
Yes.
Sure it can. And you've all seen that. I'm only going to remind you of things that you know about in that regard. You know what they call it when you have some online information about yourself that isn't very good? You like cyberbullying or something, but see when something bad about you that someone can find online, they call that your digital dirt. And your online presence is called your digital tattoo. Your digital tattoo. It's kind of interesting and fascinating, and it's really a new part of the world. Branding, though, also is a business term. I've been to many business presentations where they're teaching, entrepreneurs and executives and people who run companies how to do their branding, right? And I set myself up as a consultant and so forth, so I started taking some classes and things like that. And I went to some marketing class. I went to a branding class. I had a branding coach. I went to branding boot camp to figure out how to brand my little consulting and my business. It's pretty interesting. I want to tell you a couple stories about that. In one of the classes I went to, this one was about social media. And so they wanted to teach people, people my age, how to use social media. So we sat around and we all had our computers, and they said, okay, to get started, we're all going to learn the name of the person next to us, and then we're going to stand up and introduce the person next to you. Okay? But everything you say, you have to get from the internet. So if I was sitting next to Kat, I would get her name, I would go to the internet so I could find her. It was a fascinating day, and you know what? We learned something about every person. For example, the lady sitting next to me, she was working in the HR department at UCLA. But what I found out was her degree had to do with musical instruments and the history of percussion instruments in formal processionals in ancient societies. She'd written a fascinating paper about it, which she had read before an international conference in Buenos Aires. And I learned all that about her on the internet. She didn't know I learned that, and I stood up and introduced her that way, and she was appropriately embarrassed and complimented. She had a digital reputation out there that followed her. She wasn't in that career anymore, but it was a really nice way to introduce her. We went around the room, and there was this lady over here. I don't remember her first name, but I remember the person next to her getting up and saying, I'm here to introduce Mary, but you know what? She doesn't have a Facebook page. She's never been in Twitter. I can't find her when I Google her. I don't know anything. She's just got no presence online. And you know what? We all learned something about her right then. We learned that she was a little out of the loop, you might say. That's the reason she was in this class. Good for her. But isn't that interesting? We still learn something about her. Okay? And I think one of the interesting things to realize is this online branding thing is happening to all of us, whether or not we're involved. If you never have any presence out there, somebody find a presence for you. Someone will post your picture. Something will happen, and you'll have a presence out there. Oh, that's interesting. That's really interesting, because the world is really changing in that regard. I'll tell you a little bit more about my branding boot camp. We were asked to think about how we want to brand our business, what kind of logo names we want to put on it. And so we were asked, what do you do? Well, what makes you different? Well, what market are you trying to fit? Well, who's your primary customer? Well, what are their needs? And here's what the coach said. Branding your business is a sequence. And you have to figure out certain things and do the branding in a particular sequence. And if you get that sequence out of order, you go over the wrong direction and you'll be marketing to the wrong people. Or representing the wrong things. You have to do it in sequence. So especially as a solo entrepreneur, you've got to come back and you've got to ask the most basic question. Who are you? Before you can brand you, you've got to be able to ask the question, who are you? Wow, that was interesting. That made that class pretty tough. Because I went around for a long time scratching my head. Who am I? Who is me? Right? Who am I? I think there's lots of people who make the mistake, they don't realize that they and what they do and how they do it, they become branded, they become known, and then they forget that they're a brand. You can probably think of many examples. There are people who kind of make mistakes like that. There's one I'll mention that probably some of you have not heard of. His name is Tiger Woods. Anybody ever heard of him? I'm glad. Tiger, amazing person. Known for his tremendous ability at golf. Just par excellence. And what happened was he got all these endorsements. He was making a tremendous amount of money from those endorsements. He had an outstanding reputation in his career and so forth. And one day, he lost it on the personal side of his life. He got upset and angry. His marriage was falling apart. He took a golf club. He broke the back window of the car. And guess what? It made the news. It got out. It got caught in social media. And suddenly, the bubble of how perfect he was burst. And the next day, some of his major sponsors started canceling their contracts with him. His career has never fully recovered. Okay? He's not broke, I don't believe. But boy, he lost millions and millions of dollars. Because there was an inconsistency between his brand and him. Okay? He kind of forgot that he was a brand. There's lots of other people you can think of that, have brands and so forth. Politicians have online brands, right? We've been seeing a lot of that the last few months. It's pretty obvious. There's a guy who I admire in a lot of respects. His online brand, his name is
Curry.
what? Say it.
Steph Curry.
Who does that?
Steph Curry. Steph Curry.
Steph Curry. Some people don't like Steph Curry as a basketball player, and some people do. Some people admire that he's a Christian and so forth, and he has this great, wonderful play, and he'll do this. He's giving a branding, right? There's pretty much a logo and a slogan for him. Recently, had a little bit of a social media problem, and he kind of teased in an interview that he was going to maybe have to shut off the internet at home because one of the games went bad. And his wife posted on Twitter that she thought maybe the NBA reffing was rigged in order to keep the games going on to lengthen the series. Now don't blame her too much. She's not the first NBA wife to ever post that or feel that or accuse that. But boy, it was a big reputation thing the next day in the papers, and Steph had to make this little comment. Yeah, we may have to shut off the internet at home. because had quite a few repercussions. By the way, after she posted that, one of the former retired NBA refs posted, yeah, it's kind of true. The NBA is kind of like wrestling. Ooh, scandal. Eh? But how quickly reputations can change. Steph Curry is someone who I pray for that his reputation stays good, that he doesn't mess up and blow up and hurt that wonderful reputation, because he's representing Christians and Christian belief when he's out there. Not just him, he seems like a pretty nice guy. So anyway, there's other people. What's that singer's name? Taylor? Oh. She has an online presence, doesn't she? Real powerful one, isn't it? Her online presence can change the reporting industry, right? She refuses to do certain things and go along with certain kind of standard contracting things. She posts and complains about it, and she can move things. Then again, there's an awful lot out there in what she posts, both in her songs and other ways, about her personal love life. Right? A bit of a mixed review there. She has quite an online presence. And who's that other one? What's her name? Lindsay? You know about her, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I love her. I love her. But there's an online branding challenge that these people have. Well, what I'm saying is that certainly happens to the rich and famous, a lot of politicians and so forth, but it can happen to you and me too. And I'd like to tell you a little bit now about you. How many of you, as the campers here, were born before 1995? Yeah, quick math, no hands, right? They say those people born since 1995 are what we're being now called Generation Z. Okay? Generation Z. Oh, you might think there's just a few of you. No, there's a lot. There's a lot of you. There's estimated, what is it? 2 billion people in that age category worldwide. That's a lot of people. Those people have a lot of impact as a result. There's other names for this generation, sometimes called the bubble wrap generation, because they've been surrounded, cocooned, and they've kind of lost their own little bubble. Okay? Your generation is also being called the screenagers, because the average amount of time per day in front of some kind of screen is over 10 hours. That's not going to go down anytime soon. I don't know about where you go to school, but our school district, they're upgrading and so forth. And next year, you know, they have Chromebooks. Some of you have Chromebooks in the classrooms, do you? Something like that. On our school district, maybe yours are students too. Next year, they're going to issue Chromebooks to every student in the school district, from grade 1 to grade 12. Why would they do that? Because the textbooks, when they're electronic, are a lot cheaper and easier to handle. It makes a lot of things simpler. But that's just more screen time, right? More connectivity. Screening. It's a common thing. The other thing that your group is called is the global generation. The first generation to be so connected around the world. Well, there's 2 billion of you, right? The global generation. Wow! How many of you have some kind of online connection with somebody in another country? Quite a few. I have friends I regularly follow and closely keep up with who are in Australia, in Thailand, yes. I have a lovely girl who met her as a teenager, but now she's a woman working in a professional career in London. She's one of the people who Republic of Georgia, so it's interesting background. It's nice to get updates from her now and then. You know, friends I went to college with who live in India, and I get to celebrate birthdays with them online, you know. It's just kind of neat to be connected. And then some of the class stuff I've done, I remember going, of all things, I attend meetings now and then in Twitter. It's really kind of interesting to do a meeting in Twitter, but you can do it. And I met this guy through one of these meetings, and I found out that he had the same opinions about several things that I did. And we were kind of messaging back and forth, and I kind of feel like, well, I never met him, but I kind of know him, you know? Kind of have this connection. It's really kind of cool. So we're connected globally. You know, that's never really happened before. That's really pretty new, isn't it, in the history of mankind? It's just amazing what's going on. Your generation, probably some of you I know, you're just not using Facebook anymore. That's just like old, grandparents use that. What was that story I heard about a young man at his grandmother's deathbed? Son, I decided I want to leave the farm, including the farmhouse, barn, tractor, all the cattle, all the equipment, and 24 million cash. Wow. Grandma, I didn't even know you had a farm. Where is it? And the guy grabbed she said, yeah, Facebook's for grandmas and so forth, playing Farmville and stuff, right? But you know what? Of your age group, okay, there are 1 billion active on Facebook. Whether or not you are. You've got peers all around the world who are very active on Facebook. Huge presence. Huge presence. Just awesome. Your generation does about 5.1 billion Google searches per day. Your generation does over 4 billion views on YouTube per day. Your generation boasts about 500 million tweets per day. And your generation, as well as mine, now has access to 1 million apps. Wow. Now, a lot of them are in languages that you and I don't understand, but there's so much out there. And it didn't exist a few years ago. The world is just moving and changing so quickly, and it's going to keep changing. By the time you finish school, facial recognition may be pretty much perfected. You know the implications that has for searches? Someone might be able to take your picture and then search and find everything you've ever posted. Whether or not your picture is associated with that time you posted. It means so much is accessible. It means so much is growing. Search engines will be changing. Things will be moving along. By the way, what's that? Snapchat. That's it, right? And what happens? You post something on Snapchat, and then what happens? You what?
24 hours. It goes away after 24 hours.
It goes away after 24 hours? I don't know. Someone tell me.
On your story.
Oh, you can set the amount of seconds when you send it to someone. You can snap and set that timing and it'll go away. And they have 5 seconds to see it or 10 seconds to see it. So it's kind of safe because you post those things out there and they go away. Oh, did you know there are now apps that search for recent Snapchat posts and screenshot them before the